Hi Papercrafters, welcome to another Design with Joe video. I'm Joanne Rogers, a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Central Alberta, Canada, and I've been designing with you in mind since 1999. Today's video is an edited version of a live recording. Enjoy! So what is Case the Cattie? If you are new and you've not seen a Case the Cattie before, what I do is I take a current Stampin' Up! Design, so current meaning that it's in a current catalog somewhere, and I sort of recreate it for you, and I break it down into the different sizes that you want, the layout, I talk about maybe the techniques that they are using, and then what I do is I show you a card made with that, so it's a card today, and then I have at least 2 other designs to share with you, and today I have 3. And what that does is maybe get your brain whirling around a little bit, and maybe you start thinking about some of the things that you have in your own craft supply area. And you can think about how you can make this same design using what you already have. So you don't need to go out and purchase something new. You can use what you have. And I'll bet there's some paper, there's maybe some ink and some rubber stamps, and that will really work well for this. And I show you the 3 different kinds, well, 4 different types today from all different themes as well. So we are making something out of the mini catalog today. So Stampin' Up! Has 2 current catalogs. It has an annual catalog that's really quite thick and can almost be a little bit overwhelming. And then we have a much smaller one that is more themed, especially this time of year, for fall and Christmas. And some winter in there too. And we also see a few things that will work for Valentine's. So I've chosen a page that I'm going to copy from. And I did put in a picture, and I put in the picture yesterday, and anybody can comment on that picture and take a guess at which design I'm going to make. So this was the picture that I put up there yesterday, and just a guess, and I had some people guessing for both of them, of course. Rather, I had votes for both of them, and I'm just going to make one of them, but you don't have to be right, and you could possibly win the card that I am going to make today. So this is one of the ones that we are going to be making. And this stamp set that Stampin' Up! Is using here, that the artist is using, is the Merry Snowflakes. And so I have changed it up with a different Christmas set, and it is Christmas, and some different designer series paper. We're going to be making this card right here. And we're going to make it so that it looks quite a bit different, I think. So I'm going to pull back to this in just a little bit, but let's get started. So we're going to be using the Gingerbread and Peppermint Designer Series paper, and this is 6x6 paper that has all kinds of different designs. So there's 12 different sheets in here, and they're double-sided, and so you can see all the different sheets, and they're double-sided. So there's 24 different patterns on here, and you get 48 sheets, so you get all kinds of paper here. And these are the colors that are in here. There's cinnamon cider, early espresso, old olive, and real red. And so I'm going to pull out what we need for our supplies. So for this card, we're going to be working with, let me just show you here. We're going to be working with this paper. I didn't pick the top left for any particular reason. It just is this paper right here. So on one side it has the red and the white, and on the other side it has the olive and the red stripes. So you need 2 pieces of designer paper. You need a piece that is 2 by 3.5, and then a larger scrap that is 2 by 5.25. Then you need a piece. We're going to start actually down here. We're going to use a note card. So this is a note card, and some of the cards that you see in our current catalogs, you don't necessarily know that they are note cards, but I am given the size of the card, and so I do know that this one is a note card. So I've got the note card and the matching envelope, and these come in a pack of 20, which is a really great deal. And I'm also using basic white because that goes really, really well with our designer paper. So I've got that, and then I have another piece. Because we're using white, and I'm using white, we are only going to be using one other piece of white, which is 3 by 5. So 3 by 5, and it's going to fit on like this. Then we need another piece of white. This is basic white, and this one is little. This is 5/8 by 2 3/4, and we may end up cutting that down. And then some scraps. So some scrap of real red and some scraps of thick basic white. And when we get to this one, I'm going to show you how to put the double-sided adhesive on the adhesive sheet on the back of that. So we are going to start with embossing. So we're going to emboss this piece of 3x5. And I've chosen the Merry Melody embossing folder, and this is a large embossing folder in that same catalog, and it is just new, and it has it is musical notes, and I believe that this is Joy to the World. I think, Karen, you didn't correct me, you gave me the answer one other time when I used it. And we're just going to take our piece of white and we're going to put it in. And when we put it in, when you have anything that has lines that need to be straight, then Stampin' Up! Gives us a really helpful little line down at the bottom, and you can just line up the bottom of your white, look at it right through the clear plastic, line it up, and then you're going to run that through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I have already done that, and what you get out of it is an embossed piece. Okay, and it really doesn't matter where you put it in there. We're just going for some of the musical notes. So we have that one done already. We are going to pull in the Frosted Gingerbread stamp set, which is coordinating with that paper. And it has all kinds of lovely little things here, very sweet for gingerbread, and think about the icing on the white part there. And what we're going to use today is we're going to use the bell. And we're also going to be using the Happy Holidays. So I pulled out the bell already, and it is a solid image. You can see I've got some ink on there. I didn't clean it. So I've got that, and then I have Happy Holidays as well. So when you're using a photopolymer stamp set, so photopolymer stamps are clear. So you can see that these are clear, and they stay pretty much clear unless you tend to use pinks or reds. For some reason, the pink and the red really picks up the color. And of course, we want to use red here. Like when we think about these guys right here, they're peppermint candies. They are pretty much red and white and green and white, right? So they're clear, but what works really well is that you can see right through them when you're stamping. So we're going to start by stamping our Happy Holidays. So let me bring in the picture again. And let's just talk a little bit about this sample. So this sample here, when I looked at it, had a couple things that I thought that stood out to me. The first was there was embossing. So there was a background embossing here, but as well, there's embossing on this snowflake, the background one, and there's embossing on the words. So there's double embossing on here. And there's also mixed metals. So we have some copper embossing here, and we have silver embossing here. So I wanted to pull in at least 2 colors of our embossing powder. And so I've pulled in gold and silver. So because these are photopolymer, when you're stamping on a hard surface, there is no foam in these stamps. So I use my Stampin' Pierce mat just with a piece of paper on top of it, just a piece of scrap paper, which is my grid paper. So I'm going to put that down. I've lined it up with my grid. I'm going to take my Happy Holidays and my Versamark Stamp Pad. So my Versamark is a really sticky stamp pad, and it is great. There's all kinds of uses for this, but this is the one that we probably see most. Now, before we actually stamp though, if you happen to have an anti-static pouch already in your stash of supplies, so this is something that we used to carry. It's called an Embossing Buddy. You might see it somewhere else where you can purchase it, and it's called an anti-static pouch, or anti-static powder is what you might want. In a pinch, if you don't have one of those, then you can take a used bounce sheet that's already run through your dryer, or a fabric softener sheet, I guess. Doesn't have to be bounce, and you can just rub that over top. So I'm just going to lightly sort of pounce it on top, and what that's going to do is lay down a little bit of powder so that there's less static on that paper. My Happy Holidays going the right way. And then I'm going to try and stamp this without getting my head in there and try and get it straight. It's easy to do when you're looking straight down through the stamp, but when you're looking sort of on an angle like I am, it isn't necessarily always go straight. Okay, so, and that one, not bad, I think. So I'm going to do that in gold. So I keep my embossing powder in just some dollar store plastic containers. I keep just this is an ugly piece of scrap paper, cardstock that is just acting like a little shovel for me. and I'm just going to lay that on top, and then I'm going to tap it off. So when I tap it off, I'm taking a lot of powder out of there, but I also need to get rid of all of these. So that static pouch didn't work as well as I wanted it to, because there's still quite a bit of little dots hanging around. So I'm just going to tap those off and move with my little paintbrush. And this is just a paintbrush from, I don't think this is from the dollar store. This is an old paintbrush that sort of outlived its usefulness. Okay, so we are going to take that and we are going to heat it up. So we're going to use our heat tool that has 2 settings. And the first setting, number 1, we use for vellum. And the second setting we use for paper. So I'm going to heat that up. And I'm just warming it up right now. You can see me waving it around. That's just so I don't burn myself. But then once it's hot, you're gonna point it right at the embossing powder. And when it turns shiny, which will take just a few seconds, then you're going to move the gun to a place that isn't shiny. And this is just a little bit more of an expedient way, more efficient, that's the word I want, a more efficient way of heating up. Okay, so there is our words. We're going to set that aside. I'm going to pull in my real red. I'm going to use that Embossing Buddy again. And you can see now that we're going on top of red that there's a fair bit of powder that does come out of it. So I'm just going to give it a little run over. So you want to touch your paper as few times as possible, because it's the oils in your hand that the powder is going to stick to, the embossing powder. So I'm just going to ink this up. Now, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but there's almost a little squelching noise as you ink that up. So just get it really good and inked. And I'm going to put it down here. Give it some good pressure. And straight down pressure. You don't want to wiggle it around too much. You want to just go straight down. And I'm holding one hand in place the whole time. And then when I lift this up, because it's a sticky ink, I am going to hold on to my paper. And you heard that little slurp as it was letting go. And then I'm going to heat this one up with silver. So here's the mixed metals part. Okay, we have silver, a silver bell. So if we had words to silver bell, that'd be perfect. Same thing, we're going to heat this guy up. So you just double check and make sure it doesn't have any dull areas left. And if you don't, then you're good. Okay, so we are actually done with our stamping. So this is a Simply Chamois. And even though the ink is clear, it does need cleaning. And you just sort of clean it off on here. I will run this underneath water once a day, maybe at the end of the day, and it comes out clear and you don't see any of that ink around there. So I'll leave the bell to do a little bit later. So we have our bell, we have our words, we have our embossing folder. Now what we need to do is we need to cut out our bell. So in the gingerbread dies that go along with the stamp set and the paper, there's a set of dies, and there's all kinds of dies in here. And there is one that goes around the bell, and we are going to use that for that one. And there's also one that gives you all kinds of detail. And I want to use that one as well. So let me just move this aside here. So remember this piece of paper, this piece of scrap. I'm going to take that scrap, I'm going to put on some of our adhesive sheets. So the adhesive sheets come in a size that is 6 by 12, and I've just cut a little piece that's just a little bit smaller than this one. And the easiest way that I've found to do this, so it has little perforations in it, take off one of those perforations and then glue it down. So just press it down and it will glue in place, and then turn it back, and then you're going to lift up the other one. Maybe easier said than done. If you have any challenge, you can just pull in your take your pick tool and then just lay that one down. So now what I've created when I cut into that is something that's going to be double-sided. So I'm going to take this bell and I'm going to cut out that piece that's double-sided. So I'll run those through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machines. Now just a tip when you're placing this on, I take a piece of Post-it note, just cheap ones from the dollar store. Well, I guess they're not typically Post-it notes at the dollar store. Sticky sheets, place that right over top of the metal, and then when I run that through, that's not going to move. And I have already done that. So let's just pull those out. Okay, so I've got a piece here, and I'm going to talk about those pieces there in the middle. And there's my silver. Now we do need to cut another bell. So you're going to want to cut another bell that this one's going to sit on. Okay, so we've got 2 bells. So I want to take this and I want to cut that down in size. So I'm going to need to, I'm going to pull in the picture again. When I pull in the picture, that size is actually fairly small. So you can make this as long as it needs to be for the stamp set that you have in the greeting, but I can see that there's quite a bit of space over here. So the size that this needs to be, that I figured out for that, is 5/8 by 2 3/4. And I'm pretty sure that this one is longer than 2 3/4. Yes, it is. So I don't want to cut off my exclamation mark. So I'm going to take some off the happy side first. And I'm just going to cut that with my tool. I'm not really, that one I didn't measure at all, but this one I will. So 2 3/4, I go out to the 1/4 ahead of the 3, to the left, or the right of the 3 rather, and then cut that off. So now I have a piece that is 5/8 by 2 3/4. Now let's start gluing. So here's my folded note card. Here's my embossing piece. I'm going to pull in my liquid glue, and my liquid glue is a staple always in my, I use this a lot, and I am going to decide which of the sides I want to use. Now in some cases I would use the debossed side, which is what this is. Can you see that the paper is sunk in different spots? That means it's debossed, and this is the embossed, meaning that it's sort of sticking out at you. So I'm going to put liquid glue all the way around the outside edge, some in the middle. I could put that right back into my container and put that right over top of my note card. It's going to go right out to the edge of the note card and right down to the bottom. It should fit on there exactly. One of the bonuses of liquid glue is that you can move this around without it being exactly permanent as soon as you put it down. So we're going to put that part down there. Then we're going to take our piece of designer paper, and that's going to go right over the bottom. Now I'm going to do this with liquid glue as well. Now you could decide which one you want to go with. I think I like the gold because otherwise there's just a bit too much red here. So I'm going to go so that I have the green showing, the side that has green on it rather. Liquid glue on it again. And then you're going about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom probably. And you want to try and get that, line it up with the fold edge. Now when you get here, if it's a little bit long, so you can see here, I've got just a tiny little bit that's sticking out the edge. So you can just take your paper snips, run the shank right against the edge of the card and just trim that off. And then it'll be aligned with the edge of the card. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put some dimensionals on the back of here. So dimensionals are things that, little sticky, they're a type of adhesive, but they make things sort of stand up a little bit. So we're going to put those 3 of them on the back so it stands nice and even. And then this is also going to be flush left, just with maybe 1/4 of an inch or so down at the bottom. So line that up also with the fold and try and get it straight. So now all we need to do is put our little decorations on. So one of the things I found when you're doing a detail cut like I did on this one, and you have that adhesive sheet on the back, is it may cut through my paper, my cardstock, but it may not cut through that plasticky piece that's on the back. So before I try and get all of those pieces out, and you can do that just by poking it with your, take your pick tool. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try and get that backing off, and it comes off fairly easily, and I think those pieces might go right along with it. So some did, and I think those other ones want to go too. Okay, so all of those little extra pieces went along. So that goes in the garbage, and then this just sits right over top. Try and get as centered as you can. And then just tap it down and it is glued. So we're going to put the embossed piece, heat embossed piece on the back. So my embossing is on the back and I have a smaller one on the front. I don't have a smaller one here, so I just did 2. So let's put our dimensionals on. because I'm gonna have like bells like you see sort of on a, usually on a wedding or something like that, I'm gonna place that down there, and I'm gonna do the same thing here. Now what I'm gonna do here though, is I'm gonna overlap it. So it's going to be overlapped like this. So I don't need to put dimensionals on the whole thing because I want this to be the same level. So I'm just gonna put a dimensional here, and I'm gonna put one right at the top. And then I'm gonna take those off, put a little bit of liquid glue on here. It'll come off. And then I'm going to put that on here. There we go. Okay, so we have, now you're going to need to just let that set up a little bit because this is a plasticky surface. Okay, so that is that part of the card. We could embellish just a very little bit. So I'm going to use a silver and clear epoxy, and I'm going to go for the silver one. And I think probably, see that stuck up just a little bit, I'm going to put the round one right on the top, I think. Whoops. Trying to get it in the circle there. There. Okay, so that's just a little bit. And I'm not going to put anything down here. I think that these are just a little bit too big, and they're going to actually take away from some of the icing there. So my envelope is just going to be taking a piece of my designer paper. I'm going to glue it right onto that flap. And I put my glue onto the flap, not onto the paper. So I'll give myself a little bit of glue. Go as close to the edge as you can get. You don't need a huge amount of glue here. So try not to put great gobs of glue on there. And then line up the right edge or the left, whatever works for you, just one of the edges. So this piece of designer paper is, what did I say it was? It is 2 by 5 1/4. And that's going to give you a piece. You want to go right up to that fold line. And then turn it over, use your paper snips, and you're going to do the same thing as we did on the card. You're just going to cut right around the envelope. Now, be sure to pay attention to this one when you see it, because I'm going to show you another 3 designs made with this. One using the same set that looks a little bit different, and then 2 other totally different ones. So now you have a totally matched card. Okay, and you've got your mixed metals here between your gold and your silver, and lots of really bright colors. And so I like the freshness of that white tone on tone. But let's take a look at one that has some color. Very similar idea, but I've used color this time. Now when you're using color, so it's a white card on the inside, it's still a white note card, you need one more piece of paper, and you need one more, in this case, Old Olive, and this piece is 3 1/2 by 5, and that goes right over top of the entire front. And other than that, that's the same card pretty much. So we've got Christmas covered. So how about this guy right here? So this one here is made with the Positive Thoughts and the Nature's Thoughts dies, as well with one of the butterflies out of the Butterfly Brilliance and the Meadow Moments here. So a much different kind of look. And then one more, because I thought I would like to see one that was a little bit more for a wedding or something a little bit more fancy, elegant. And so what I did with this one is there's actually 3 mixed metals plus clear embossing powder. So there's a lot of embossing going on this particular card. So this one here is just a vanilla note card because they come in basic white and vanilla. And I'm using the Forever Fern. And so I've got gold, copper, and silver. And then we currently don't have any designer paper that's vanilla, I made my own. So I used this one just with Versamark and clear powder to make my own paper. And then this is the Ornate Floral. And then I used stamping and embossing on the back of the envelope. So I'm always curious to know which one is your favorite one, which one do you like the best, and you can let me know that. So, you know, there are so many different ways that you can take this one design and you can make it be something, whatever you need in a card for an occasion, and you are going to love it. So Thanks for watching. You can always catch the replay, and I will also post this in a YouTube video. And if you currently are not a subscriber on my YouTube channel, I am so close to being able to do YouTube lives. And I'm really hoping that some of the challenges that we experience with Facebook and internet and stopping and starting will go away if we're on YouTube Live. So if you're not, head on over to www.designwithjo.ca or Design with Jo on YouTube and subscribe, and we'll get up there and I'll be coming to you as soon as I can. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome day, and we will see you next week for Case the Cattie. Bye-bye.